This video is sponsored by Wix Filters, manufacturers of filters for automobiles, trucks, off-road equipment, and manufacturing applications. Go to wixfilters.com for more information.
Hello and welcome back to Rollin' with the Numbers, where we present you with data that gives tire dealers information to keep their tire businesses rolling based on research conducted with our independent tire dealer audience and beyond. I'm David Sickles, Senior Editor for Tire Review, and today I'd like to welcome to the show a very special guest, Babcox Media's own Audience Insights Manager, Bruce Kratofil. Bruce, I am intimidated by your insights, your daftness with data. You are the doyen of all things digital, and I really appreciate you coming onto the show to talk to us today. So here is a big data point that we're talking about, VMT, vehicle miles traveled. Can you tell us, what does this mean? Where does it come from? Why is it important?
Well, vehicle miles traveled is an important measure of economic activity. What we're going to be looking at is the government data. It comes from the Office of Highway Administration, from the Federal Highway Administration, at the U.S. Department of Transportation. So give all the bureaucrats their due there. It's available on an almost 2-month lag. So it's June 15th here. And the latest data out from the government is still in March. Okay. Next week or the week after that, we'll be getting April's data.
Got it.
So that's VMT. There's also some private sector sources of data. A company called Arity, which was founded by Allstate, uses cell phone data to track vehicle miles traveled.
That's smart.
That's good. They use 23 million cell phones. But it's a subscription service. You have to pay for the data. So we're going to focus on the freely available government stuff.
Interesting. So why is VMT important? Why do we care about this number at all?
Well, when we aren't traveling, we aren't going to jobs, we aren't going out and spending money, and GDP is going to be a lot less if we're all locked up at home. Mm-hmm. Lock up being the key word, or lockdown being the key word.
Sure. So, VMT was up in March 2022 from March of 2019. That was the last month of March unaffected by COVID. So what does this tell us?
Okay, it tells us that things are going back to normal. In fact, March of 2022, going back to March of 2021, it was up 2.9%. If you go back to March 2020, which was the first month of the lockdown, it is up 22%. Wow. Vehicle miles traveled, if you go back a long way, it's a nice, slow, steady. In a recession, it might drop 1%. It would go up 1%, in recovery, but slow, steady increase. Then with COVID, you had 22% drops, 22% zoom ups, and things went haywire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how do you plan for something like that? It's impossible.
I didn't learn that in grad school, definitely.
So fuel prices, obviously, one of the big data points that has to do with VMT, pretty much directly related to VMT. What are some other statistics that correlate with VMT?
Well, as I said, it's been normally has a slow, steady increase, a little fluctuations around recessions. But any other economic time series that has slow, steady increases with little fluctuations during a recession would correlate well with it. That would include GDP, would include vehicles in operation, how many cars and trucks are on the road. It would slowly increase with population. The more people there are, the more they're going to travel. So anything like that goes up. You mentioned gas prices. In the short run, there's not a huge relationship because in the short run, you're still going to be going to work. You're still going to be going to the grocery store, take your kids to school. There won't be a lot of fluctuation in the short run. It's only in the medium and long run when you can, first you start cutting out your discretionary trips. Well, let's not go for a Sunday drive because gas is $5 a gallon. Sure. Then it stretches longer and longer. Then you start to look at things like, maybe we'll get, instead of an SUV, we'll get a car or an electric vehicle or something like that. But those happen in the long run, not the short run.
Okay. When VMT is down, are there certain services that someone like a tire dealer should be focusing on at that point?
Well, a lot of vehicle service intervals are given in time and mileage. 3 months, 3,000 miles, 6 months, 6,000 miles.
Yeah.
So if everyone's home and not driving, they're not going to be hitting those mileage intervals. So what's going to happen, the tire dealers are going to have to emphasize the time intervals instead of the mileage.
Okay.
Say, it's still been 6 months, you need to come in to get your oil changed anyway or something like that.
Got it.
For tire wear, it probably, isn't going to make much of a difference. But for a lot of the others, they're going to need to emphasize the time intervals.
Sure. Things like changing your battery, things like that, where...
Yeah, the battery is going to be more how old the battery is compared to, it's still going to be used, but, age is probably the biggest factor for batteries.
So
I should point out that I'm an economist and not an auto service technician.
Yeah, of course. Let's look at the flip side, though. VMT, let's say it's going way up. Obviously, that is good for maintenance shops. Is there anything specific that you can point to that might be especially good?
Well, again, also it's what comes sooner, 6 months or 6,000 miles. So if you're driving a lot, the 6,000 miles might happen before the 6 months, and you can do that. And obviously, the more you travel, the more your tires are going to wear out. So the tires will need to be replaced more frequently.
Okay.
And that's a good thing for a tire dealer.
Absolutely. With fuel prices as high as they are today, can we expect VMT to drop?
Well, if you look at the data, fuel prices have been going up since January of 2021. And there's a big increase, and then there's another big increase with the war. But during that time period, the first from 2021 to 2022, gas prices were going up, VMT was going up. But a lot of that was we're going back to normal. We're coming back to the office more frequently.
Yeah.
March 2021, here at Babcox, we weren't coming in 5 days a week. We're coming in closer to that now. If you look back, March of 2021, things like sports were being held at reduced capacity. People weren't traveling for entertainment and recreation purposes as much as they are now. So that counteracts the rise in prices. Of course, now when we get prices up to $5 a gallon, people might start to reconsider.
So just in your speculation, if gas prices, let's just say they don't go down for the foreseeable future, a year or 2 years from now, they're still at that $5+ a gallon, is that going to be affecting VMT at that point?
It could. In the longer run, people can adjust their behaviors in terms of getting a smaller, more fuel-efficient car if those cars are ready to produce and there's not supply chain shortages. But then if they stay up, then you could start to see, it have an influence on VMT. If behavior starts changing, they say, okay, we're not taking Sunday drives anymore. We're going to combine trips. We're going to do something. In the long run, people do things like switch from cars to mass transit or something like that. But they're not going to do that in the short run, only in the long run.
Okay. So here's an interesting one. A lot of tire dealers are starting to kind of dip their toe in the water a little bit as far as EV services are concerned. We're seeing this in tire shops and just general maintenance shops. Does the switch from internal combustion engine to EV have any effect on VMT?
Well, possibly. One of the things, EVs don't quite have the range of an internal combustion engine vehicle, an ICE vehicle. So if range anxiety has any effect, people might not be driving as much if everyone had electric vehicles.
Oh, okay. Okay. But that's not happening anytime soon.
That's not happening anytime. It's they make up only, single digit part of the vehicles in operation right now. And even if they switched totally over, it would still be many, many years before it got to even 10% of the vehicle
Sure.
in operation. So.
Okay. So last question for you. VMT, what is the big takeaway as far as what the data has been telling us the last, 10 years or so? Is there any pattern that we can look at and have a takeaway from that?
Well, you say over 10, like until March of 2020, VMT was like a sleepy village that nothing ever happened there. And suddenly all the action started happening in VMT. And, in the future, if there aren't lockdowns, you won't see 22% drops in 1 month in VMT. But over the long run, you could start to, between gas prices, EVs and so on, you can start to see some long run trends. But, it's gone from, something that people didn't really look at unless you were in the auto sector to something a lot of economists have been looking at.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, thank you, Bruce. Okay. I appreciate you being on the show.
Sure.
Thank you. So for more business intelligence data to help boost tire dealer profitability, be sure to watch out for our next episode of Rolling with the Numbers. If you subscribe to our newsletter, it's in there. Look out for it. Until next time, keep on rolling.